This is a 1961 Bentley S1 Continental Flying Spur, a piece of classic British motoring history, the kind of car that you'd expect to be driven by old men in tweed suits, not Silicon Valley entrepreneurs or car journalists trying to make an effort in a cheap suit. But beneath that curvaceous OAP exterior, nothing is quite as it seems. That's because this is the creation of Silverstone-based British restomodders Lunaz, who's been ruffling a few feathers in the classic car scene in the last few years with their meticulous EV conversions. Yep, this Bentley is a nut and bolt restoration that's had its oily bits replaced with electric ones. Right, now under here and hidden away where the sun don't shine are a pair of electric motors driving the rear wheels, producing about 350 horsepower. There's also a total of about 80 kilowatt hours of lithium-ion cells. So the range on this thing, the real world range, about 2 to 250 miles. It can rapid charge, just like a Porsche Taycan. There's even luxuries like regen braking, cruise control, traction control, and those batteries I mentioned are split. So 2/3 of them at the front, 1/3 of them at the rear, to make sure that the weight distribution and handling is just so. In charge of all Lunaz's powertrain tech, which is entirely engineered and developed in-house, is John Hilton, a former Renault F1 director who helped Fernando Alonso win 2 F1 championships, so he knows a thing or two about tight packaging. And the formula seems to be working because business is booming for Lunaz, who recently doubled its workforce to meet demand. Clearly, this sort of attention to detail doesn't come cheap. A Lunaz Bentley starts from about £350,000, and that's before you start having fun with very special coach-built bodies like this one, and different paints and different leathers and infotainment upgrades. And if this doesn't tickle your fancy, well, Lunaz will also sell you a 60s Rolls-Royce Phantom 5, a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud, a Jaguar XK120, and the latest addition to the range is an electrified Mark I Range Rover, yours for 245 grand. Now, the focus is on short production runs to keep prices out of the stratosphere, but, you know, if blank checks are your thing, then Lunaz is always open to conversations about something entirely bespoke, and it's not just focused on British brands either. Nothing's off the table. The process goes something like this. The donor car is sourced by Lunaz, or if you got something rotting in the corner of your 18-car garage that needs reviving, they can go to work on that. But be warned, every car is a bare metal restoration. The car is 3D laser scanned, a CAD model is created, the best place for the batteries and other electronics is found, and any imperfections in the chassis corrected. This isn't shoehorning the batteries and motors from a crashed Tesla into any old thing in someone's shed. It's a proper job. So here's a dilemma that prospective Lunaz customers might have to face. Do I go for the all-electric £350,000 time warp Flying Spur, or do I go for the Flying Spur that's half the price? It's brand new and has a 4-litre twin-turbo V8. Well, if you want to go all-electric, it's a done deal. You got to have one of these because you can't buy an all-electric Bentley yet. There is a plug-in hybrid version of the Bentayga, and there's going to be a plug-in hybrid version of this car coming later this year, but for now, that's the situation. So let's leave powertrains to one side for a minute and move on to presence, because having these two parked next to each other is fascinating. I thought the new one was going to tower over the old car, but it doesn't. They're actually pretty much the same size, similar proportions. The new one is slightly lower, slightly wider, and interestingly, you can see this curve, this bit of muscle in the rear wheel arch echoed from the old car. There, now don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of the new Flying Spur. I think there's something about it. It's a very good looking car. It's a cracking car to drive. If I had one, I'd have to fire the chauffeur, but if you want to feel special, if you want to get noticed, if you want to make people happy just by driving past them, well, this car's in a different league. Imagine being a Premiership footballer and pulling into the car park in one of these. All the other players would be hanging their heads in shame. And we haven't even had a look inside. Come on. The idea in here is obvious, to keep all the charm of the original car, but to subtly integrate all the technology that we just can't do without these days. So you have aircon, of course. You have a proper sized infotainment screen down there. The back seats are heated and you've got USB ports, and look at these dials in front of me, they're brilliant. Your speed is on the left. Over here is the amount of power that you're using, including the amount of regen when you come off the throttle. This is your percentage of charge remaining, this is your battery temperature, and the switch gear in the center of the dash is just brilliant. It looks just like the original. It's true to the original car, but look at that, twist that and that's your cruise control. And this bank of switches down here, you've got your heated seats, you've got this one to unlock your charging port, you've got this to stiffen up the dampers. It's brilliantly done. Now, I promised myself I wasn't going to mention the S word today. Yeah, Singer. Everyone talks about them when they're in resto mods, but the truth is I'm here, I'm looking at this level of craftsmanship, this obsession to detail. This car is properly done, and it does draw comparisons with those Californian 911 fetishists. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'll tell you what, should we go for a drive? Jeeves, chuck us the key, old boy. Good man. To be honest, I'm fairly astonished that Bentley and Rolls-Royce hasn't taken the plunge and released a pure electric new model yet. And the reason I'm surprised is because electric powertrains just suit cars like this absolutely down to the ground. If you think about it, for decades, Bentley in its plushest models has been trying to reduce engine noise, reduce vibrations, to increase the refinement and increase torque. And with an electric powertrain, all that just happens inherently. And I know what you're thinking, yes, Jack, but batteries are expensive and batteries are heavy. Well, Bentleys are expensive and Bentleys are heavy, and that weight is one of the reasons why they ride so well and why they feel so solid and so planted. Going around corners is, yeah, quite interesting. Let's call it period correct, authentic amounts of body roll. You turn the wheel and you stare down this enormous bonnet of the Flying B all the way over there, and you wait a bit and then a bit more, and then the prow comes round. It's a lot more like sailing a ship than it is driving a car, but it is so much fun. Honestly, it feels unlike anything else I've driven. It does feel very much like a classic car in the way the car handles itself, except you've got this space age powertrain, this smoothness. You don't have a truculent, coughing, spluttering engine up front trying to spill oil all over the road. In terms of performance, well, it doesn't quite go like a stabbed rat like any Tesla owner will know about, but you do have a lovely smooth torque delivery. From the first time you step on the throttle, it just gathers momentum smoothly and efficiently. Yeah, I could definitely spend a couple of 100 miles in this, maybe a few more actually. The sense of occasion in here is off the scale, and not just because I'm wearing my wedding suit. So the big question is, who actually is the target customer for this car? Well, it's someone that admires a classic but knows the limitations of their reliability. In other words, they don't want to lie around in a pool of oil having to fix their car every few days. In fact, the owner of this very car here has one of the biggest collections of pre-war cars anywhere in the world. So he clearly loves a classic, but he also knows how temperamental they can be. And what he wanted was something that he could just hop in, take his family somewhere and know that it just works beautifully. Of course, there are some of you that will look at this car as butchering a piece of our motoring history, that electric motors and batteries don't have to infiltrate everything, but I see it a different way. Lunaz claims it's furthering the legacy of the most beautiful cars in the world, and I agree. In other words, it's not killing history, it's preserving it for future generations. And hey, if it keeps beautiful shapes like this on the road, well, I'm all for it. Jeeves, when you're ready,